Hey everyone, I'm gonna wait a few moments, but I wanted to do a very fast tutorial on how I painted the fake wood look on these foam boards that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use just a black and a brown acrylic paint, 2 paintbrushes, a plate, some water, the X-Acto knife that I used, and just a towel. So I'm just going to start by putting some of my paint on my plate. Now I did them on separate spots and I didn't do a lot at one time because this is foam board, and one person had already made a comment that their corners were peeling up because it's, let's see, here's an extra piece I had I'm going to use, and if you can see it all, it's like a paper with like a foam in the middle. This is just a scratch piece. So before I painted it, excuse me, I just got home. I'm going to use this, just this curve point that was, but you could use a nail, a clothespin, or anything. And I'm going to go through, try to do this backwards, and just make like little, almost like 2 C's in random places. And then I'm going to kind of go and accent around them a little bit and inside. So that'll kind of give you your knots. And you can also just make random little gashes in your wood. And for the bigger pieces, I put either 2 or 3 knots and just kind of randomly placed them. Just randomly. Doesn't have to be anything pretty. Now for the ends, I wanted it to look like they had been nailed together. They were real wood. So I just took and randomly gouged the edges. So when you do your painting, that'll give you your texture along with the layering of your paints. And also, you don't have to do this if you have the right colors, but I did not have very many acrylic paint colors to choose from. So I'm going to actually dip my brush in a little bit of water and wipe it out. You know, kind of just barely dip it and keep wiping it off some. And then I'm going to mix a little bit of my black and grab a dab of brown, barely dab it again and mix it up. So I'm going to get it real thin, and then I'm going to kind of wipe it off. And then this brush kind of looks textured. I got it at, I think, Walmart for 50 cents. Not very expensive. And I'm going to try to do this best backwards as I can. Just randomly, real thin, all over the board. Just real light. So as you can see, you start with a texture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to those places that I made indentions and kind of really focus on those. You can dab a little more in your paint, it's fine. And I'm going to go where I made the little knots and kind of push the paint into those spots and my little gouges. Kind of working it in those little holes because it's hard to cover because they're foam board. And it's okay if it's a little too much, because when you layer and you keep on, it spreads it out, it tones it down. And I am by no means an expert at this. I just tried to figure out how I could make my own, because I was trying to save money this holiday season. And I like doing it myself. I like crafting. It's really fun. So then I'm going to take a little bit of brown, just a little bit, and spread it on the plate a little bit. And I'm very gently, randomly go in some places. And then I'm going to go heavy on the places that have black. Then I'm going to just kind of go over it, because it's pretty dry at this point. Doesn't seem like you're doing a lot, but you really are. And if you get on later and you see this live and you have questions, just comment. Now I'm just going to show you slowly how it's looking. Now you can tone this down if you want a light whitewash. You could use more whites. You could use whites and grays. You can do this whatever color you want. I just wanted the darker brown as closer to the picture. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take and barely dip this in some water. Wipe a bunch of it off. And then I'm going to take it in that little bit that I spread out and mix it up. And then wipe my brush off. Because this is foam board and you're trying to control the liquid, and then you just keep working it. You go from lighter, darker, lighter, darker. Sometimes I'll go in and I add a little bit of darker, but I'll show you as I go. And you can work in sections, however you want to do it. And I'm going to focus on those darker areas. And if it's moving too much one way, you can kind of go back the opposite direction. It's okay if it ends up looking too blended, or, you know, it's not going to look the best at first. You keep working it, and being crafty, it's hard to look at something and be like envisioning it all the time. Dab a tiny bit of water. If you run out of paint, you can just barely dab some more of your brown. However, you know, there's no rhyme or wrong reason here. I'm just showing you what I did. So far I don't see anybody on, so I don't know if I'm missing any questions that you may actually have. And by going back and forth and just kind of, it just helps it give it the texture. And just blending it more and more. And I'm going to give it a minute. And I'm going to just actually go in and use straight brown mixed with some of the white, the watered down black, and just a little bit, and kind of mix it in another spot. Kind of getting a little darker. There's no, it has to be this or it has to be that. And I'm just going to kind of gently spread it in places. Turn my brush, it's on the other side. And then I'm going to take my straight brown and dab it in there. So I'm just doing different variations of the brown. Some lighter, some darker. You could mix it with brown and white if you really wanted. And then I'm going to kind of work on those spots again. As your brush runs out, that helps give us a texture and blend stuff. And this is still a little bit too light for me, so what I want to do next, and I've, got to get a little more brown out, because I don't put too much out at one time, because I don't want to fill the plate up where it's hard to have a mixing palette. I'm actually gonna mix a darker brown that's solid in color. So I love the Dollar Tree groups. I love the farmhouse look and doing it on a budget and being crafty. It just keeps me relaxed. I enjoy it. Use one a little bit lighter brown. And again, I could have easily done this if I would have had a bunch of different colors of browns and different things, but I'm kind of low on some of my acrylic paints. So, like I said, work with what you got. You can make your own colors. Even the blue woodgrain, if you had wanted something with like the blue and white whitewash look, or the rustic pale, oh, that would be pretty cool. You could get a bucket, maybe paint it white and then make it look like a rusty bucket. If you have places that are kind of crevicey, you can kind of work them in if it doesn't work in with this brush. And then you're just going to kind of keep it stroking. Pull them out. And it's a bit dark, but I'm still going to adjust it. If it feels like it's getting too wet or trying to peel, like a tiny spot right here did, I just wet my brush, wet it, and push it down. And then I'll just give it a minute to dry a little bit, and it will curve because it's wet. Now what I did is I just set something heavy on it. You could, yeah, just leave it as it is. When you hot glue it to a cardboard bag, which I got an empty cardboard box from the Dollar Tree, and so I saved money there. And I didn't wait a whole long time. I just kind of did this, and sometimes you touch it, it'll make a mark on your finger. It's okay, you're going to paint over it some more. It's, you know, acrylic paint dries pretty quick. You could use a heat gun if you had one, or a blow dryer. Drinking my coffee. I'm excited. I have Christmas music on. Looking forward to this. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this in water and kind of rinse it out and wipe it off mostly. Then I'm just going to use this little hand towel. You can use whatever and kind of wipe it off some. And I'm just going to kind of go in random places. Sorry, I had a phone call coming in. Now I'm going to take my rag, a towel, whatever you're using, and just kind of wipe it off in places. Just be gentle. I'm going to let the top dry for a minute, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this mixture. And I kind of like the darker edges. That way the box that you're gluing it on, it kind of hides the crevices, and it also gives it a dimension and a texture. So a darker brown with your black mix will work good for that. You could do it straight black if you wanted, but the only problem you have is when you're painting this, and I usually dip water, mix the water to spread it a little further. When you're painting like this, it will actually go on the edge some. So if you have it too dark, can't really paint like that. And I get it as best as possible, but I don't sit there and worry about if it's super perfect. You do yours how you want. But as you can see, it gets on the edge, which you can tone it down if you want later. You can, you know, kind of rub this, it'll tone it a little bit. Sorry about this lighting, I guess. And I'm going to take the same mixture while I'm letting this other part dry, and I'm gently working in some of these knots on the lines. And where I made the little indentions on the edges. And that'll help give you dimension. And I work from the outside in and swipe with my brush. That gives it that look. And that also kind of hides those indentions you made So when you get further away, you should be looking more and more like wood. And again, you just, based on how light or how dark you want it or what you like. I will be honest, when you're doing wood grain, because I do it with a lot of other crafts, I make tumblers and different things. If you stare at this too much, you're like, it's not, I don't like it, I don't like it, I don't like it. You have to kind of take a break and look, put it from a distance to look at it, because when you're up close, you see the imperfections and, oh, that doesn't look like it, but when you come back afar, it looks like wood. So just, you know, playing around with it different ways. And I'm going to take a lightly go with a darker color, very lightly, and work it from the edges in. And you should be getting more and more. And you just and that's all you have to do. And like I said, you just see if I can finish up a corner so you can kind of see how it really looks together. And it's okay if a corner lifts up. Like I said, you just kind of wet it and push it down and leave it alone for a minute. So I hope everyone is looking forward to the end of 2020 and the holiday season. Pray that next year is better. Wishing everybody peace on earth, because we need more of that. Have the darker texture on top. Sorry, y'all. My dog is over there and like crazy man. And so you start ending up with something like this. Use the back of the plate behind it so you can really see the dimension. And that's pretty much it. You let it dry and you just hot glue it. Now I did paint black on the cardboard box that I had. I didn't put that on the steps, but that's optional, just because I had messed up with some of my measurements. I was rushing and wasn't paying attention, and I picked up some wrong pieces that I had miscut. And but yeah, so have fun. I hope this helped, and let me know if you have any questions.